It might be hard to tell because, you know, of all of this. But I actually really love SEGA as well, whatever country you're from. In fact, a lot of SEGA games are some of my favorite games of all time. But a lot of them are really hard to get a hold of now. In fact, a lot of them are really expensive. And unless you're a retro gamer like me, you don't really have that option of setting up your Genesis or Dreamcast and playing any of these games at a moment's notice. So imagine a world where we actually have some kind of virtual console on the Switch with a little tab that says SEGA, and you can download some great SEGA gems whenever you feel like. Or a game like Wild Arms, which is crazy expensive on Super Nintendo. The cart is over like $200 now, I think. Recently got a remaster version, physical too, on the Switch. $30 is a lot better than $200. So whether they're expensive or just really fun, what games should get the Wild Guns treatment? What games should we be able to play on the Switch? There are so many in fact that I've picked 18 for this video. 18 SEGA games. I'm just gonna go with SEGA for this video for the sake of confusion, and I am Australian, so I apologize. I know the games start with SEGA, but for some reason it's SEGA. Also, I wanted to make sure that every game on this list was actually developed by SEGA or a company that SEGA owns. That way, all of these games are far more likely to actually be able to come to the Switch. 18 SEGA games that I would love to see on my Switch. Let's get started. And I always like to start with a bang, so the very first one is Skies of Arcadia. A port of this game on the Switch might honestly break eShop download records. This game was released on Dreamcast back in 2000 and ported to GameCube in 2003. An absolutely fantastic RPG developed by a team of staff who previously worked on games like Panzer Dragoon Saga, Phantasy Star, Sonic, and Sakurai. Skies of Arcadia was one of the best Dreamcast games. It might actually be my favorite Dreamcast game. It's very similar to early Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games. This game being ported to the Switch would be a dream come true for me. And don't even get me started on a HD remaster of this game. And you want to talk about not getting me started? Let's not throw around that word physical too lightly, because if this game got a physical release and a collector's edition, oh geez, my wallet hurts already. Next up, we have one that may be possible purely to capitalize on the third game, which is coming out fairly soon, Shenmue 1 and 2. Shenmue 1 and 2 found their way to Dreamcast in 1999 and 2001. Then later to Xbox in 2002. Flash forward to 2018, and we're getting HD ports of these games on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Windows, and not Switch, that we've heard of at all. I get that Shenmue 3 most likely isn't coming to the Switch, but if you already have this HD remaster, just throw it on the Switch. Why not? There's no, at least digital, there's no reason not to. Do you not like money? You know what I'm saying? Probably my actual favorite SEGA game, number one, hands down, is a little hidden gem for the Genesis, Gunstar Heroes. I don't even need a remaster, just give me the game. Gunstar Heroes is my all-time favorite run-and-gun shooter game. It made its debut on a SEGA Genesis in late 1993. So saying SEGA Genesis doesn't make much sense. It's Sega Mega Drive, Sega Genesis. I'm all confused. In fact, the way we pronounce it, it should be Sega Mega Drive when you think about it, but let's not think about it. It also found its way to Game Gear, PlayStation 2, Wii, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, and even a 3DS version. I honestly don't even need a HD remaster of this game. It kicks so much ass as it is. The original game still holds up today with its great pixel art and fast-paced, exhilarating gameplay. Throw that bad boy on the Switch, bundle it with the GBA Gunstar Superheroes, and you have a pack that I would buy hands down. The one thing I will say is I'm pretty sure this is the only game on the list that wasn't developed by SEGA, it was developed by Treasure, but this game is so good I couldn't not put it on the list or talk about it in some sense, and I could very easily see this happening, I hope. A Shining Force collection and a Phantasy Star collection. I feel like both of those are really great ideas and would have a large audience of people that would download and play them. However, I know little to nothing about these games. So rather than fumble my way around that, I can't in all good consciousness do a SEGA video without inviting my friend RGT85, who knows a little bit too much about SEGA, the man who has a complete 32X collection which he holds over my head every day, I can't not have him come in here and talk about a few games at least. So let's throw it over to Sean so he can talk about these two.
Yes, we're talking about SEGA stuff today, so I'm here to lend a helping hand because I know a lot of SEGA stuff. A series that is often forgot about and has kind of lost its way in newer entries is the Shining series. Shining Force was absolutely amazing. It was one of the best strategy RPGs of the time, and definitely a collection of games that deserves to get a chance to shine on the Nintendo Switch, especially Shining Force 3. Shining Force 3 was a late release for the Sega Saturn in North America, and was one of the best strategy RPG games of all time in my opinion. I absolutely adore that game. But what's interesting about Shining Force 3 is it was actually a 3-part game. There were 3 parts to the game, but North America only got the first part. Shining Force 3 Part 2 and 3 were just regulated to Japan, and they've never been released outside of Japan. This would be a perfect time to do it. Just translate the stuff and put it on the Nintendo Switch in an HD collection. Shining Force is really fun. If you're a fan of games like Fire Emblem and stuff, you will absolutely love the Shining Force series. Definitely something I want to see make an appearance on the Nintendo Switch. Before it was an online MMO, the Phantasy Star series was actually very, very popular, starting out on the Master System and then getting 3 entries on the Sega Genesis. And these are some of the best turn-based RPGs of all time that people have just forgotten about because the games have been regulated to the Phantasy Star Online series, which has taken a bigger shine in the world of Sega's eyes. But there's so many people that would love to play these original 4 games on the Nintendo Switch that this is definitely a collection that we need to see. What's interesting is the original Phantasy Star was actually included on the Sega Ages collection that released for the PS2 exclusively in Japan that actually got updated graphics. And you might be saying to yourself, well, the Sega Ages is coming to the Nintendo Switch. But guess what? They're not using that version with the updated graphics. They are simply using the version that was for the Master System that also released on the Sega Ages collection. The Phantasy Star series is tried and true strategy turn-based RPG that's just awesome, and definitely a franchise and series that deserves a spot on the Nintendo Switch, and I'm not talking about those stupid online games.
Speaking of the 32X, I couldn't not put my favorite 32X game on this list. And it's also my second favorite Sonic game that was ever released. Knuckles Chaotix. This game was released in 1995, and to date it is still my personal favorite Sonic game other than Sonic Mania, which was insanely good. As a kid, I always thought Knuckles was way cooler than Sonic. In fact, I thought Sonic was kinda a little bit lame. And while I have always liked Sonic games, I never truly loved them. In Knuckles Chaotix though, they tweaked that traditional Sonic mechanic by adding a partner system where you are tethered to another character. The tether acts as a rubber band, and you can use that to maneuver around the courses. This gem was only ever released on the 32X, so it would be pretty cool to wake up one day and find it smack bang right there on your eShop. While I will concede it's not the best Sonic from a technical standpoint, I still adore this game, and I find the gimmick of that tether really enjoyable. It adds something to that traditional Sonic format that I really love. Out of all the games on this list, the next one is the one that I would say is the real hidden gem, and that's Jet Set Radio or Jet Grind Radio. Jet Set Radio, titled Jet Grind Radio on its North American release, is an action game where you skate the streets of a fictionalized Tokyo on inline skates, spraying graffiti and evading the authorities. It was actually one of the first games to use cel-shaded visuals. A sequel, Jet Set Radio Future, was released in 2002 for the Xbox. I think it would be a great idea to get a HD double pack of both these games on the Switch. And we don't have another skating game on the Switch right now that I can think of. These aren't complex skating games like Tony Hawk, they're more about the fluidity of skating and that joy and motion of skill as you grind your way around each level. Skating isn't so much the focus, but more of the medium. Whether or not these games do come to Switch, I highly recommend playing them. They're really fun.
One of my favorite Sega Saturn games of all time is Knights. Knights was supposed to be sort of the answer to Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation and Super Mario 64 on the N64. Both of those systems had their mascot. Sonic was taking a snoozer on the Sega Saturn. He didn't want to be on the system except for weird offshoot games like 3D Blast and Sonic Jam and Sonic R. So along came Knights that was supposed to be sort of the platform's mascot. And I really enjoyed Knights at the time. It was a fantastic game. A 2.5D game where you play as a character named Knights. Basically, there's these 2 children who are having nightmares, and Knights has to get rid of the nightmares in the world. You basically just go around collecting orbs and putting them into these these things, but it's based on time, it's based on speed, it's based on your technique of getting these things done. There's boss battles, the game looks really, really good with tons of great colors and tons of awesome music, just very 90s Sega, but not the 290s Sega, the Japanese 90s Sega. There's tons of great stuff here. Now this game has actually been available on the PS3 and the Xbox 360 digitally with a Knights HD version that was also available on Steam. And in this version, you have the HD version of Knights along with the Saturn version of Knights. So port this over. What's the problem? This would be another perfect game to play anywhere on the go. I absolutely love Knights, so I hope Knights does make an appearance on this Nintendo Switch.
Yakuza 1 and 2 HD. This one's kind of interesting. Yakuza was released in Japan in 2005 and elsewhere the following year for PS2. It then had a sequel released in 2006. Both of these games tell a fantastic story with a lot of depth and very innovative gameplay. Now I am aware that we recently got remasters of these games. These remasters are incredible and I highly recommend playing them, but I don't see them finding their way to the Switch. However, they could still make their way there in some form. I didn't know this until I started this video, but in Japan, they actually released a HD double pack of both of these games on the Wii U. It was only released in Japan and it didn't really sell that well. So this is a great chance to actually make some of that money back that went into HDifying these games and just straight port that over to Switch. Make it physical, make it eShop, I don't care, I'd probably buy it. It gives people an extra option to play these games. Maybe if they don't want to buy the remasters on PlayStation 4, they could play essentially the same game that it was back in the day, just HD on their Switch. Let's jump a little into the future of SEGA games and talk about Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation is a survival horror game based on the Alien films. It was released on PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox 360, and Windows all at the same time in 2014. So, with it being on those older generations of systems as well, it stands to reason it could shuffle its way through some spaceship air vents and find its way to the Switch. It would be a perfect fit next to the already very growing library of horror and thriller games the Switch seems to be getting. This game actually surprised me with how great it is. Great art design and sound design. The Aliens AI is really well done as well. I would definitely play this game on the train, which would lead to some really embarrassing moments. Like this guy. I say it a lot, but never was there a more perfect fit for the Switch than Super Monkey Ball. There aren't too many games out there that could use the Switch's motion controls and gyro features quite as well as a Super Monkey Ball game can. Specifically, I suppose, Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz for Wii. This game is all about traversing your way through tricky stages, platforms, and obstacle courses, and it is quite addicting and a great party game too, with 100 main game levels and 50 mini games. That is, of course, if we're talking about a straight up port of a Monkey Ball game. To be honest, with how fun a Monkey Ball game could be, if you imagine a level where you're moving around it like this, trying to be really careful not to fall off the edge, I think it would make sense to do a new installment for the series, taking full advantage of every feature the Switch has. You see something like Nintendo Labo, which uses the controllers and the system in so many creative ways. I could see a Monkey Ball game doing a very similar thing. How could I make a video like this without going completely crazy and talking about Crazy Taxi 1 and 2? Crazy Taxi is a very unique style of score attack racing game. It first appeared in arcades back in 1999 and was then ported to Dreamcast in 2000. The first game was the third best-selling Dreamcast game in the States. So clearly, there are people that would want to play this game again, you would think. We have seen it on PlayStation 2, GameCube, and PC, and we should see it on the Switch in glorious HD. The core gameplay mechanic is so innovative and unique that SEGA has patented it, which even led to a lawsuit over this game, Simpsons Road Rage, which is a very similar game. Well, SEGA, since you're gonna go ahead and sue anyone that even comes close to making a Crazy Taxi game, then how about you share the love and put Crazy Taxi on the Switch? Actually, to be honest, I'd prefer this on the Switch. And Hit and Run. No, this is Hit and Run. That's not Road Rage. I meant to say Road Rage. This is Hit and Run. Road Rage is the one. I would like to see Road Rage or Hit and Run on the Switch.
3 games in the Panzer Dragoon series released on the Sega Saturn. Panzer Dragoon 1, 2, and Saga. And 1 and 2 are definitely very different games from Saga, but I would love to see all 3 of these games in one HD collection on the Nintendo Switch. Honestly, this could probably potentially sell systems because people love the Panzer Dragoon series so much. The first 2 games were basically on-rail shooters where you're playing as a character on the back of a massive dragon, and the graphics, the atmosphere, the music was just so empowering. It's so awesome. The gameplay was very tight and refined and crisp. Just absolutely amazing experiences that are unfortunately very expensive to pick up on the Sega Saturn. Panzer Dragoon Saga was actually a bit of a deviation. It still had those dragon elements in it where you were playing on the back of a dragon, but was more of a turn-based RPG, and arguably one of the best RPGs on the Sega Saturn. Now, rumor has it that the source code for Panzer Dragoon Saga has been lost, but we've seen games with lost source codes end up coming back anyways. This would be an absolutely amazing collection of 3 games on the Nintendo Switch, something that a lot of fans would want to see.
If you've been watching my channel for a while, you might know that I love me some Toe Jam. And Earl. I forget that part. And if you haven't been watching me for a while, remember to subscribe. I mean, you're this far in the video, you may as well. Toe Jam and Earl was released in 1991 for Genesis. It had 2 sequels, but we only talk about one of them. And now with a new Toe Jam and Earl game, that's right, Toe Jam and Earl is coming back in the groove, I'm pretty sure is what it's called, to the Switch. Now's a perfect time to get people all caught up on what an amazing and unique series this actually is. Double pack it, do it separately, I don't care, I'm down for whatever. This was actually the very first roguelike game I ever played. And when I was a kid, it confused me a lot, but I loved how unique it was. The fact that every time I played the game, it was a little different was crazy to me as a kid who couldn't afford to have that many games. It was nice to have one that was forever changing. So Nintendo/Sega, Switchify it. I should make that a thing. Hey, so Phantasy Star Online 2 would be a great idea, Nintendo. I talked about this one already in a video that I had a lot of fun making called 5 Switch games that were only released in Japan or something like that. I really love how that video turned out, and I talked about this one already. Japan's getting Phantasy Star Online 2 for the Switch, and we're not, and nowhere else is. So if you want to know more about that one, make sure to watch that video. For the awesome people that watch every one of my videos, I don't want to talk about the same thing twice. Also, I just don't want to talk about the same thing twice. The next one's sort of a joke. In fact, the game itself was a joke, but it's also kind of a joke that I want it on the Switch. It would be a good idea though. Let me explain what I mean. In April Fools of last year, I was minding my own business when a friend messaged me and told me that 8-bit Bayonetta dropped on Steam. It was an April Fool's joke by Platinum Games, the creator of the Bayonetta games. It was free and then was swiftly removed from Steam. It was just never intended to be up longer than that. But if you downloaded it, you got to keep it. I have it, I could play it. I don't, but I could. It kind of reminds me of that dinosaur game you can play when your internet craps out and you're stuck in the browser. You stand in one place, you jump and you shoot. It's actually pretty cool looking, and if it was fleshed out even a little bit, it could be a really fun spin-off title. But as it is, I would totally download this for free on the Switch, even if it was only up for a day or two, maybe next April Fools. I mean, let's be honest, fellow people with crappy internet, even that dinosaur game can get pretty addicting at times. I've had my internet come back on, and I'm still in the middle of trying to get a high score. Oh, and a side note, in 8-bit Bayonetta, you only get one quality setting, and that's fantastic. Almost every generation of system seems to get a SEGA collection pack now. A mix of the old school games exactly as they were, exactly as they are, thrown into a mesh of other games and ported to a system. Throw on some Splatterhouse, throw on that Gunstar Heroes, you could put 10 to 15 really great games on there, make it 30-ish bucks, and you'll probably get quite a few sales. Again, for Gunstar Heroes alone, that actually Splatterhouse, now I think about it, I would pick up that collection pack. And now for the very last game. Guys, we've had a lot of fun today. You and me, you and I, all of us, talking about a ton of SEGA games, franchises like Sonic, Panzer Dragoon, Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Monkey Ball, Shenmue. Not only are these games I don't get to talk about too often, but they share something else in common. In a very similar way to Nintendo franchises all appear in Super Smash Bros., all these SEGA franchises appear in a little racing game which I actually adore, SEGA AllStars Racing. Both AllStars Racing and its sequel, AllStars Racing Transforms, are really enjoyable racing games. I would go out on a limb and personally say it's in a very similar league to Mario Kart. In fact, the second game, Transformed, has its own twist of being able to shapeshift vehicles and being able to turn into boats and jets. And some of those levels are so fun and creative, I do find myself having Mario Kart levels of fun. It's a really well put together racing game. SEGA recently announced a new racing game, or at least hinted to it. It doesn't seem to imply it's a sequel to the All-Star series though, but regardless, at least put Transformed on the Switch. It was on Wii U, yeah, it ran pretty well, but it looked kinda crappy compared to 360 and PS3 at the time. And we need more quality racing games on the Switch other than Mario Kart. F-Zero sure doesn't seem to be happening, so SEGA, now's your time to capitalize. Well guys, you know me pretty well at this point. You know I like to speculate about games that I think would be a great fit for the Switch, both games that I would really love and enjoy, and games I feel like the masses would also enjoy. It's hard to sometimes not feel like I'm being greedy when I keep wanting more and more, or speculating or theorizing as to what games would be a good fit, but you gotta admit, I didn't mean that to rhyme, that these games would be pretty good on the Switch. Am I wrong though? If you disagree with any of these games, if you think any of them would be amazing, or if you have your own suggestions, let's have a conversation down below. And while you're going down below, I'm not ever saying that again. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe, because we become bestest of friends. A huge thank you to the Patreons that make all of this possible each and every week. I love you guys so much. A huge thank you to Sean for coming in and helping out on this video. Him taking those 5-ish games actually saved me about 20 minutes of recording time, so that alone I appreciate. But Sean has an amazing channel, and make sure to go check it out. Links down below. But guys, that's all from me today. Let me go ahead and play you out to my outro. I don't know why I did Mary Has a Little Lamb. It kind of made me hungry though. Hungry for lamb.